Now presenting Fedora in Education, Nemanja Milosevic.
So I guess this works. Oh, okay. Hi, this is talk Fedora in Education. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Nemanja. I'm here from Novi Sad. I work as a teaching assistant on Faculty of Sciences. I teach, if it matters, databases, artificial intelligence, and computer networks. So if you want to discuss any of those topics, feel free to hit me up. I'm also a Fedora ambassador in Serbia. I'm going to talk a little bit about Fedora community in Serbia. And the main reason why I'm giving this talk is I want to share my experience with managing the Fedora classroom, as we call it, with 24 workstation for students and one workstation for the professor or the lecturer, and how we migrated from the older system. I'm going to talk about a little bit about that, and how we manage the classroom, and what are some difficulties we had, and some cool stuff we did. So just briefly, I want to talk about our community here in Serbia. If you are in Serbia during when Fedora is released, you can visit us at one of our release parties. As you can see, we had 3 already. So for Fedora 24, 25, and 26. For Fedora 27, we will have a party in about a month and a half from now. So at these events, we try to gather students, and everyone is welcome to come to hear what is new in Fedora, to talk about Fedora with us, to share some experiences, what can we improve, what can we do better. You can also reach us on Twitter at Fedora Serbia, and you can also find us at Freenode at Fedora-RS channel. So we have 2 Fedora ambassadors in Serbia. We have Momchilo, who is somewhere around, I don't know where he is, and myself. And our community, the organizing and how can I put this, helper community is I think 5 or 6 people now who are actively contributing to Fedora. I'm also managing to package some software for Fedora, and we have some cool tablets who are running Fedora. I also did those, so you can, if you are interested, you can talk with me about that. Okay, so using free open source software in education is, I believe, very important. Here are some reasons. The first, obviously, is the ability of students to inspect and learn from software they use. So if they're interested in how something works, they can use it. And with proprietary software, it is impossible because we don't have the source code. Another important reason is there's no licensing problems. So when students graduate, they can just continue using the software we taught them to use, which is great. They don't have to learn something new just because they don't want to pay for the software we're using, because it's free. Another very important reason is that students this way get involved through events or through talking about open source software with the open source community. So I'm very proud to say that we converted, I think, 10 or more people to use Linux in general, mostly Fedora, but some other distributions as well, because they are tired of using something else. Another important reason is that free open source software is more adjustable to needs of lecturers, to needs of students. So if we don't like something, we can change it, where in proprietary software, it is, of course, impossible. So that's why I think it's very, very important to talk about using free open source software in education. So our project to convert our classroom, the classroom is called RC3, which stands for Computer Center 3 in Serbian. We have 25 machines there. They're pretty powerful and new. They have Core i5 Intel CPUs, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and NVIDIA graphics. Yes, you can run Fedora on NVIDIA graphics, even though the drivers are proprietary. It's possible. We are not actually using open source drivers because I think there are NVIDIA 710 GPUs, and I don't think they work that well with open source drivers. So we are using the RPM Fusion drivers with Fedora 25 at the moment. The previous solution we had in the classroom was that we used Ubuntu hosts, which was fine, but we thought it would be good to separate somehow so that students from one class can't access data from other classes. So we used virtual machines. We thought it would be a good idea, but there were some shortcomings. The main reason why we use Windows in VirtualBox machines is because we didn't want to throw something at students that they aren't familiar with. We were afraid that it's gonna have a high and steep learning curve, but it was proved wrong after. So some of the main issues we had was the boot times. So you boot up the machine, and then you have to boot up a virtual machine, and it takes like between 5, maybe 10 minutes, because these machines don't have solid state drives, they just have plain old hard drives. So another issue that I didn't list here is that students often forget to close virtual machines after they're done with the class. So we were running out of RAM after a full day of classes because there were like 5 or 6 virtual machines running at the same time. It was very difficult to distribute files, which is much easier now when running just Fedora Linux. Both ways means that it's difficult to pull files from the machines and it's difficult to push files to machines. It was also very difficult to update or install new software when it's all set up, because it would require either updating the virtual machines from the virtual machines or just scrapping the old images and putting new ones, which is also very bad. The good thing was that almost all software we used in teaching was open sourced. We teach computer science students, so most of the software we use is based on Eclipse. So whether it's just for Java development or it's for C development, I would say 80% of the classes use some sort of Eclipse environment for modeling, for developing, for everything. There was some software which wasn't compatible, but we found an alternative which was compatible. We decided to not use virtual machines because they were too slow, and instead of that, we used separate user profiles and the configurations for every class. So when you, as a student, come to the classroom, there are, I think, 15 or even more now user accounts, and you log in to one of the class you're using, and everything is set up there. So why did we choose to use Fedora? We wanted to have the latest software. That's the main reason. So with new kernels, we had full hardware compatibility out of the box, apart from the NVIDIA drivers. Almost all development tools are available in the official repositories, and there were fresh versions, so we can just update the machines regularly and always have the latest version, no management issues there. We were also familiar with the whole family of RPM-based distributions, because most of the servers we use at the faculty are actually CentOS. Obviously, good documentation and support, and of course, fully free and open source software, nothing proprietary there, so nothing to worry about. That's why we chose Fedora. Another reason why we chose Fedora is that it is actively used in education, not just us, but many other people who we can ask about some issues they're having. We even have a Python classroom lab, which is like a live Fedora modified distribution, which has everything you need for teaching students Python, which is very cool. So this is how the classroom looks like. This was when we first set it up. So this is the default Fedora 24 wallpaper. There are 24, you can only see 8, and one at the chair there where the professor sits, or the lecturer. This is the featured article on Fedora magazine, where there is in-depth look and how and what we did, and what were some issues and how we overcome those. So how did we do it? We prepared one workstation, and we used Clonezilla to clone it to all the rest, because they are all virtually the same. It's just a matter of preparing one and cloning it to the others. We first wanted to do it through the network, so set one machine as host machine and just boot Clonezilla on everything and just pull it through the network, but it was too slow because the network in our classroom is just 100 megabits. So what we did is use two people with 4 fast USB 3.0 drives where we put the images, and we found one old 1 gigabyte drive because there's this cool thing in Clonezilla where you can boot it to RAM and pull the USB drive. So it was very simple, and it took us only around an hour and a half to fully set up the whole classroom because it was very quick. The image I think was around 12 gigabytes, so it's not even that big. We lost a lot of time in this 1 hour 25 minutes on setting up host names because we wanted to set host names to a rule, to a naming convention. I'm going to show it later, so we can easily access the machine just with its host name. So we would like to find a way. I don't know if Clonezilla can do it, to automatically set the host name after restoring the image. That would be really great. So the configuration of it was very simple because we just use the same image on all the workstations, and we decided to call them RC3, which is the name of the classroom, dash, and then number. So it was 1, 2, 24. The main management and lecture workstation uses a different name, so there's no confusion there. Because the classroom is isolated from the rest of the network, mostly isolated, we still have internet access. We manage all the classroom from that one machine. So for management, and the main part of this talk is how we manage this classroom. We have a set of Python 3 scripts that you can find them on this link. They need some TLC. I just recently realized that the comments are in Serbian, so I'm going to fix that probably today or tomorrow. Sorry about that. We use the I'm not sure how to pronounce this, NetMiko or Paramiko front-end SSH module, which basically allows you to do anything SSH related in Python 3. It's a really mature and very good library for that. So some of the things that the script can do, it can check whether some workstations are on. It can turn off everything. It can use X11 VNC to spy on students, so during tests, things like that. And probably the most used function of it is to execute any command on all the workstations, which is the most important part. So some cool stuff we did with the scripts. My favorite thing is that we use the locally seeded torrents for distributing very large files. For example, I get an email on Friday saying there's going to be a there's going to be a summer school or some workshop on Monday, and they send me the virtual machines, which are in the 10 gigabyte size range. And I don't know if someone used locally seeded torrent, but they are incredibly fast and easy to set up. No tracker is needed. Nodes recognize each other, and you just seed on one machine, on the management machine, and it's like 10 gigabytes in I think 15 minutes to get it all over. To get it all over the entire classroom. Obviously, it's very easy to do updates or install any software on all the workstations. One of the main things we use is for just getting and sending files to all machines, which is very common when you need something to give to students, or after the test, for example, to get the solutions from all the machines. It's much easier now than it was before, where students would have to log in somewhere, upload files, and things like that. And the most loved feature from all the teaching staff is turning off all the workstations. That was the first thing that was implemented. Why? Well, when you're tired and it's 8 p.m. and all the lectures are done, you would have to manually turn off all the machines. But now you just press a button and wait around a minute and everything is off and you can go. Okay. So some future work we have planned. We would really love to be able to wake all the machines at once. So, for example, we don't want to lose any time when the tests or some things like that are on. So we just want to use wake over LAN to wake all the machines at the same time, which shouldn't be too difficult, just needs setting up. We would also like to do scheduled updates, so we can just schedule wake all the machines at some Saturday during weekend or some convenient time, and just do updates or whatever it's needed on all the machines, so no one has to be there. Our projector or beamer is connected over HDMI, so we would really love to be able to turn off, because usually it happens that someone forgets to turn it off and things like that, so we can implement something to control it, turn it on, turn it off over HDMI CAC. The last 2 points are already been discussed. We would really love to provide meta packages for our students, so our students can say, for example, install Introduction to Computer Science, and everything they need will be pulled from the official repositories. Why are they called meta packages? Because they don't actually have anything in them, they're just a list of all the packages the students need, so we just separate them by classes, and students can install them easily. Another important point here is that if there is some setup needed after that, we can also put it in the RPM package. For example, if you want to use software for databases 1, we can, for example, ask you if you want to set up the connection strings and things like that automatically, so that will save a lot of time. Our end goal with using Fedora at our university is to create our special Fedora spin. Fedora spins are repackaged Fedora official images, where you can, there's a very nice tool set where you can create what packages do you need in advance and just make images and give them to students so they can boot them either live and use them, or even install them and use them with all the tools they need. So the main takeaway here is that we believe at University of Novi Sad and at my faculty and department, we think it's imperative to teach computer science students about free open source software. It's very bad if students get used to proprietary software, and I think it's the only thing that's out there. We try to encourage them to contribute, to learn about open source software and use it first of all. Managing to migrating to a Linux compatible software in teaching is very good. It was very easy. Almost, as I said, almost all software we use was already open source, but there are very good alternatives. Just if you look hard enough, you will find something that you can use. Management is very easy. I manage the entire cluster myself, and the main reason and the greatest benefit is that the systems are completely stable. There's no downtime. There's no losing time. Performance is great. There's no more virtual machine boot time lagging and things like that. So that's very important for us. Now I have one Fedora winter cap, and I have one Fedora T-shirt. Very rare, very rare. So any questions? First two obviously get the Fedora swag. So anything you want to ask, I'm here.
Why do you think that Fedora is better than Windows on universities?
We are not trying to force anyone to migrate. I mean, if someone can use Windows and operate it as easily as we can operate Fedora, then by all means use it. But first of all, we believe that it's important for our students to get a sense of there is free open source software, and they should use it because It's not proprietary, and they can inspect it. They can learn a lot more from using Fedora than using Windows. And the other most important reason for us is that it is still easier to manage Linux machines than Windows machines.
Thank you.
So do you want the cap or the t-shirt?
Hello. Was it hard to get students to know GNOME 3 because it's pretty different than
Yeah, we had actually a discussion what desktop environment to use, and we decided to go with GNOME 3 because it's the default one. It wasn't actually that difficult. There was some getting used to it. For example, the activities overview and things like that. But we installed some extensions which help Windows users, for example, the application menus and the alternative alt tabbing and things like that. So it seems more familiar, but if they were to find some plain GNOME 3 workstation, they will still manage to find everything. But they actually liked using it because it's, you know, fancy graphics and things like that.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
More questions?
Well, I have a question. It's not related to using Fedora in education, but it's like in general. How did you decide to go with Fedora and not some other Linux distro?
The main point for us with using Fedora was actually two things. First, we were familiar with the whole ecosystem. That's the first thing. And the other thing, we always want the latest development tools. You can use any other Linux distribution, and it would probably work as good as Fedora in this situation, but you would probably end up at, I need some development tool which is new, and I have to install it manually rather than just using. So the freshness of the packages, and the Fedora strikes a really nice balance between being too new and being too old but stable. So it's right at the point between stable and really new and stable. So that's a really nice ground for us for teaching.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say it's more like, I don't know, open source or Arch Linux?
I think it's in the middle. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you using local user accounts, or you're using some kind of directory? And have you tried maybe integrating Fedora with Windows Active Directory?
We are using local accounts. So the way the scripts work is the password isn't stored anywhere, but because all machines are cloned, it's the same password, and only one account has SSH access. So when the script is started up, it asks you for a password. It doesn't check it over anything, but if you type it correctly, it will execute everything correctly. Otherwise, it will just say SSH denied. Well, we want to migrate to using keys, but for the moment, this is working fine for us, and passwords aren't stored anywhere, so it's... More questions? Okay, I have one question for myself, because I wanted to see if someone was going to ask it. So when talking to some people about what we did, the first questions I got were, have you heard about this thing called Ansible for managing a large number of nodes? Ansible is machine management software where you can install it on many machines and control them. So I want to ask, why aren't we using Ansible here? First of all, I think reading through documentations of documentation of Ansible, I think it's still a bit overkill for us to use it because our scripts are still very simple. And actually the main reason is because when we were setting up the classroom, we didn't know about Ansible, so maybe if we knew, we would use it. If you're going to manage a classroom, you should definitely consider using Ansible, because maybe it would be easier for you than it was for us even further. This was very easy, maybe that is very, very, very easy. Okay, thank you for your attention. Also, I just want to say that we have some swag left at Fedora booth, so feel free to stop by and grab it all. Okay, thank you.